What's good, YouTube? We back with another video, man, and let's get straight into it, man. So this video is going to be a little bit different. Okay, now I know this channel is self-improvement based and stuff like that, but I also made this channel to vent as well. Okay, so some stuff I say you might not agree with. Okay, I'm gonna just say that now. You might not understand. You might not get it. You might think I'm bullshit or I'm talking, and if you do, it's okay. All right. But respectfully, if you don't agree or if you have a different opinion, it's okay. You know what I mean? But I'm not saying this to offend anybody. I'm not trying to, I got to say stuff like this because people, sometimes they might take stuff the wrong way or stuff like that, or they might not. But basically, man, I'm gonna be venting, man. I'm gonna be talking about something, right? That's been on my mind since yesterday. So, like I said, this is gonna be a little different type of video, right? And this might be one of the only types of videos I make like this. I don't know if I'm gonna make more videos like this where I just vent and talk about shit. Because my channel is mostly self-improvement based, so But yeah, man, I'm gonna get straight into it, man. Freedom. All right. Now, people might not get this, right? But something I've realized yesterday is that we're not free. We're not free, man. And when you really sit back and think about it, you're going to realize that maybe I'm really not free. And it's going to kind of be a sad case, okay? Now, let me kind of explain to y'all what I mean by we're not free, okay? Now, obviously, right, freedom is the one thing that everybody wants, that everybody craves. Even me. Like when I was younger, all I wanted was freedom, right? And the reason why I say that is because I'm not gonna get deep into my backstory, but when I was younger, I was going through a lot of shit. Okay, I didn't have the best childhood. I didn't really have much of a childhood, actually. So I was in a very bad environment at the time, and because of that, all I wanted nothing more than to just get out of that environment, because when I was younger, I was trapped, right? I physically was trapped. Like I couldn't go nowhere. I couldn't do nothing. I was just trapped, stuck to endure the torture and the trauma that was going on back then. And I couldn't do nothing about it. So one of the main things I wanted was freedom. I wanted to be free from all of that. I wanted to finally be free, free from all of it, right? And then I finally got, a little bit later, I finally got out of that situation. And for that little bit of time, I felt freedom, right? Because now I was in a new environment where I didn't have to feel scared. I didn't have to feel like I couldn't be a kid or be myself. I could roam around freely. I could, it just felt like, it felt like freedom. It feels like when you finally get out of a jail, when you finally get out of jail or something, you finally get out the outside world. It's like, finally, right? I have freedom. Like I'm free, and that feeling when you are free is one of the best feelings in the world, especially if you spent a long time in jail or prison. But eventually, man, what I thought was freedom turned out that I was wrong. That I wasn't free. I still wasn't free because I ended up getting roped right back into the same type of situation. Like, so I'm not going to go too deep into it, maybe one day, but I'm just trying to give y'all a little context of what I mean. So I got roped back into the same bullshit, right? It was the same bullshit, but in a different environment, So I was technically I was going through, I ain't gonna say the same thing, but almost like the same thing. Okay. And I ended up finding myself trapped again. So now I'm trapped again. And now once again, I'm just like, man, I thought I finally was out of that situation. I thought I was free just for me to be trapped again. So I was trapped, and ever since, that's how I felt ever since. Right? Give me a sec, y'all. Hold on. Okay, but yeah, I felt trapped ever since. Right? So one of my main things now is moving out, right? Because moving out is one of the things that I want to do, because I'm tired of being in an environment that I feel trapped in mentally. Because I feel like no matter how much I try to escape it, no matter how much I think that I've escaped and distance myself away from that, I end up being right back into it. So, yeah. Now, that was my goal from a kid to now. That was my goal from a kid. Now, I'm going to talk about financial freedom, okay? Financial freedom was another goal that I wanted recently. It's still the goal that I want now, because when I first started working at my job, my first ever job at 16, I wanted, it was good, right? I did it because I wanted to make money. Like, at the time, I didn't think how that working a job would be, not enjoyable for me. Would be kind of suffering and torture. But I ended up realizing down the line of me working this first job that working a job is not what I thought. I mean, yeah, when I first started working, getting that paycheck, it felt good. But then I started to see the side effects of me working, me having to do all this extra labor, me having to do things once again that I don't want to do. My fault, y'all. But yeah, it turns out that I had to do things that I didn't want to do, and that's usually how it is with jobs, right? You always are going to end up having to do something you don't want to do. You always have to end up answering to somebody, because when it comes to a job, you don't have free will. You do what your boss or your manager tells you to do, okay? Now, obviously, you're not forced to stay at that job. I mean, you could quit, but at the cost of you not having, potentially losing money, So I've done that, I was tired of, first of all, I was tired of barely getting paid. I was tired of doing something that I don't like doing. And I was tired of feeling like I was forced to, be somebody I'm not, So I quit. But just for me to realize that, man, I need money. So now I have trapped myself to the point where I need to work a job. I need to work at these jobs where I'm told what to do, what not to do, and I can't afford to quit. So ever since I've realized that fact, I've wanted financial freedom. And that's when I found entrepreneurship, right? And my main goal now is to be able to achieve financial freedom, because, like it says in the name, right, I can essentially make more than enough money to where I don't need a job, okay? Well, first off, it's more, my definition of financial freedom is being able to make money anywhere, whenever I want, how I want, without having to show up to a job and work under somebody and do what somebody says. Okay? Because basically in term I have free will when it comes to my type of job, my business. Because you do, right? When it comes to starting your own business and stuff like that, you have free will. You have full control over your business. It's basically like your job. You created your job. You have full control over it, meaning that you can control how much you make. You can control how much you don't make. You can control when you want to work on it, when you don't. You know what I mean? It's all up to you. And that's how I like it, you know? I don't like working a job because I don't like the fact that somebody is controlling how much I get paid. Somebody else is controlling what I do and what I can't do. And I always end up not being able to do what I want to do for real. So give me a second, y'all. All right, I'm back, man. I had to relocate, but yeah, so I'm in the car right now. But yeah, so yeah, like I was saying, I wanted, that's why I want financial freedom, right? Because like I said, I want the free will to be able to do what I want, and anytime I want, right? Because that is the one thing about these jobs, right? No matter what job you are working, right? You're always doing something that they want you to do. What type of job lets you choose? Well, okay, I'll tell you that. But I mean, there might be some jobs out there where you can choose what you want to do, but ultimately, majority of jobs, you still have to work under somebody, right? And you always are going to end up having to do something that they want you to do, and it might not always be what you want to do, So that's what it is, and that's where that financial freedom comes from, the free will to be able to make money how I want, when I want, where I want, and that's financial freedom. And just off of that alone, most people aren't even free. Okay. And I'm gonna get deeper into it, but financial freedom is something that a lot of people don't have. A lot of people don't have that free will to be able to make money when, where, and how. Okay. I mean, far as how, most people do choose how they want to make money. Like some people willingly choose to work at this type of job or do this, but you can't control where or when. That's something that you can't control, right? Not really. You can't really control that. And also what you do, okay? Because I mean, and people might be like, oh, you could set hours and stuff like that. Yeah, you can, right? But still, at the end of the day, my personal experience, they can always change up your hours. That's one. Two, the where will never change, and what you're doing, what can always change, like some type of jobs, a majority of jobs, you're not always going to be doing the same thing. Some days they might have you doing something different, doing something that you don't want to do. And a lot of people don't like that, a lot of people don't like that, because most of us, when we have a job that we like, that we're used to, that we're comfortable with, we want to keep doing that job, right? We don't want to switch. But some jobs, they'll make you switch. But basically what I'm trying to say is that you don't have full control over your job. You don't. You know what I mean? And another thing is that you can always get fired. Okay? Yeah, you could choose to quit, but you can always get fired too. You can always get let go. So that's why I say, when it comes to freedom, most people don't have that. And some people just accept it. Some people accept it. Some people are like, oh, well, that's why people are okay with working their regular jobs for the rest of their life. They just accept it, and that's the unfortunate part. And Another thing is too is time, because freedom is connected with time as well, because time is something that unfortunately we don't have control over. You know, the things we do, how we live our lives directly impacts our time. And people don't realize this. People don't think about this enough, right? You could literally, like, God forbid, but somebody could leave tomorrow. Somebody could go to sleep and not wake up tomorrow. People die every day. So people always think that they have time. No, you don't. No, you don't. You don't have time like you think you do. You know. So that raises the question, are we free? Right? Because life is about free will, right? The freedom to be able to do whatever you want to do. But is that really true? Can you essentially do whatever you want to do? Yes and no, okay? Yes, you can essentially do anything that you want to do and make any choice that you want, but you're not in control. The one thing that you're not in control of is how that choice impacts your life. You're not in control of that. So let me give y'all a perfect example of what I mean, right? So like I said, remember, like, hear me out, right? I know it doesn't sound right, but hear me out. You have the freedom. Oh, let me take this back. You have the free will to make any choice that you want. You could choose to do this or do that, but what you don't have control or free will over is how that choice impacts your life. Okay? So you could choose to do something, but you don't know how it's going to impact your life. And you don't have control over how it's going to impact your life. You don't. Now that is out of your control, because essentially life is about right or wrong, right? Life is right or wrong. Life is about choices. So meaning that right or wrong, yes or no, black or white, right? But when you look at life like that, where everything is right or wrong, then you're literally trapping yourself, because right or wrong essentially doesn't exist. Being right or being wrong doesn't exist, because essentially what that comes down to, when you really think about it, is perspective. Because you could be right to people over here, but you could be wrong to people over here. You know what I mean? Like, who's really right and who's really wrong? So I'm gonna give y'all a simple analogy. I'm pretty sure we can all agree that 2 + 2 is 4, right? But, and obviously 2 + 2 is 4, and we all know this. But I could also be wrong. Now you're probably thinking, like, what? Let me explain, right? If I told you that 2 + 2 = 4 was wrong, right? Then I'm gonna be crucified and I'm gonna be blamed for saying that 2 + 2 = 4 is wrong. But in reality, it's my perspective. Because who said that 2 + 2 is 4? I mean, in this reality, in this lifetime, we know that 2 + 2 is 4. But who came up with that? Because in another possible reality, 2 + 2 could have been 6, or 2 + 2 could have been 8. But in this reality, we know 2 + 2 = 4. And that is supposedly the right answer, right? But who said it was the right answer? Who came up with 2 + 2 = 4? Who came up with the numbers, with the number system? Who came up with addition? Who came up with subtraction? Because the person that made up addition, he or she, whoever it is, could have said that 2 + 2 = 5. And if that happened, then 2 + 2 would be 5 instead of 4. Right? But because all we know is 2 + 2 = 4, that's why we think it's correct, because that's all we know. We have grown up and been taught that 2 + 2 = 4. So if anybody were to say that is wrong, we will automatically think that they're fucking dumb, because that's all we know. Okay? Now let me give y'all a better example. Religion. Okay? Now I'm not somebody to talk too much about religion, but a lot of people don't realize this, but there are 10,000 religions out there. Like around 10,000 plus. Right? 10,000. But every single day, there are people in this world that think that their religion is correct. Okay? But, and like I said, I respect all religions. I don't care if you're a Muslim, Christian, Buddhist. I don't care. I respect everything. Right? But how would you know that your religion specifically is the right one? Okay? Who's to say it is the right one? Who's to say it's not the right one? Because that's all you know. Most people know because that's how they grew up. They grew up with that religion. So they think that it's the correct one because that's how they grew up. So if I was a Muslim and all I grew up and I literally grew up around around Muslims, and that's literally what my family taught me and preached, I would grow up thinking that being a Muslim was the right religion or whatever. Right? I hope I'm making sense, right? But if somebody were to tell me that I'm wrong, that me being a Muslim is the wrong religion, let's say a Christian, like, no, Christianity is the way. Christianity is the right religion, not being a Muslim. So now that means that they're right and I'm wrong. So what I'm trying to say is that you don't even have the freedom when it comes to religion. Because most people, and this is what people got to understand too about religion, most people grow up with their religion. If you, like, okay, let's say you're a Christian, right? What if not everybody grew up a Christian. Most people grew up being a Muslim. Most people grew up being a Buddhist. Most people grew up being I don't know. It's so many religions, man. Like, it's just crazy. But most people grew up being something completely different. And everybody is going to think that their religion is the right one because that's how they grew up. That's all they've been around. They've read their Bible. They've read their books. It's not just Christianity. It's not just Muslim or whatever. So the fact that you have right or wrong or yes or no, you're not free. That's not freedom. That's not free will. Because essentially, freedom or free will, it means that it shouldn't matter what's right or what's wrong. It shouldn't matter. Because if you have complete freedom in this world, that means that any choice that you make shouldn't affect your life at all. But obviously we live in a grounded world where our choices do affect, okay? You have the free will to go out there and unalive somebody. But if you do that, guess what? You're going to jail. You don't have control over that, right? Now, obviously, we all know that unaliving somebody is wrong, right? Or is it? Because we can always rule out in saying that killing somebody is wrong,
because morally it is wrong. More in a moral standpoint, it is wrong. You should never take somebody's life. But what about the people that did it in self-defense? What about the people that are in wars that had no choice? Right? They didn't even have the freedom to choose. Because when you're in war, you're literally following orders from your commander. I don't know. I don't know how that works. But you're following orders from your commander. So you don't even have the free will to choose. Even when it comes to war, like even back then, people didn't have the free will to choose. People were just drafted into wars. We were never free. Okay? And free and when you think about it, we're really slaves. And I'm not talking about chains. I'm talking about in a more mental standpoint. Okay? Now I'm gonna give y'all an example that I've realized that I've been dealing with, that I've realized that I don't have the freedom for this, right? Lust. Okay. Now, before I'm gonna explain how lust ties into this, okay? I'm somebody that has struggled with lust majority of my life. I ain't gonna say majority of my life, for as long as I can remember. Ever since puberty kicked in, I have always struggled with lust, right? But I've never wanted to be that type of person that wanted to indulge in it. Like, but obviously I have hormones. I'm a man, okay? And I get horny. And the reason why I get horny is because my biology as a male requires me to reproduce. Because that's my main goal as a man, is to reproduce. So that's why when I get around a girl that I'm attracted to, my body, my hormones is going to indulge itself, because my body wants to look for somebody I can reproduce with. That's literally what it is, man. And every man's body is programmed with these same hormones. Every man's body, every woman's body. Okay? Now, it's going to be different for women, but every man, if you're born a man, you have experienced this. You know what I mean? And if you haven't, then that means something is wrong. Okay? But every man has dealt with this. But and the thing about it is that I always told myself that I'm tired of dealing with lust. I'm tired of masturbating. I'm tired of watching porn. Why can't I stop? And my thought process was, I wish that I don't get horny. Because I'm gonna be honest with y'all, man, I don't care about having sex. I don't want to, really, for the most part. I don't care about having sex. But no matter what I think, my body says differently. I can say that, hey, I don't want to have sex. I don't want to do this. But the moment I get around a girl that I find attractive, or the moment that I go on Instagram and I see a girl that is twerking, or she has a big ass or some shit, I get fucking horny. And I'm like, bro, but I don't want to fucking, you know what I mean? And it's like mind control, right? I get horny and I completely just like forget about what I want to do, and I just end up giving in. You know? We're literally a slave to our own biology. That's why a lot of people can't stop masturbating, because I'm sure we wish that we can control when we get horny, but we can't. Even if you're on semen retention, you can't control that. Because the moment you get around a girl that you find attractive, as a healthy man, assuming that you're a healthy young man with perfect testosterone, you're going to get horny. You can't control that. You can't control, because if we have full control over our hormones, I will literally make it to where I would never get horny unless it's time for me to have sex. But literally, You wake up horny. You can wake up horny. You literally have wet dreams. When you hold on to your seed, you have wet dreams. So even in your dreams, you get horny. And you literally release. You can't control that because you don't have a free will. You don't even have free will over your own body, bro. Okay? Because, hey, in my eyes, I don't want to have sex. I don't care about it. You know? Because obviously, I know a lot of girls, they don't like the fact, they don't like how dudes are so lustful and that dudes want to crush and shit like that. And I'm the same way, right? I don't like that shit either. And I'm not like these dudes. But at the end of the day, I can understand why dudes act like that. Women can't, but I can because I'm a man. Because dudes don't have control over their sexual urges. And I'm going to be honest with you. You can't control it. You can ignore it. Because look, no matter what, you're going to get horny, bro. It's not possible. Like, if you don't get horny, bro, that means your hormones is fucked up. Or you have low testosterone. You're going to get horny, bro. I'm telling you are. But what people mean by controlling it is just ignoring it. Being able to say, okay, I'm horny, but whatever. But you can't actually control that feeling. Okay? That's like getting a random, you know, that's like getting bricked up during school. I used to literally randomly get bricked up during school. And you know, they talk about, you know, when you have to stand up in front of the class to present and shit like that, and you randomly get bricked up, you can't control that. You literally can't control that. Think about that. You can't control that. So, are we really free? Are we? That's the main question I want people to ask, okay? Don't look at this as, this is an open-ended question. Do you think we're really free? We were born here. You know, I see a lot of people say that, hey, I wasn't asked to be born here. You're right. You wasn't. I mean, put a religion to the side. If you had a choice to say, hey, I want to be born here. I want to be born on earth and I want to live this type of life. Would you have chose it? Right? Feelings. Right? Feelings. Now, feelings is also something that most of the time you're not even in control of. Okay? You are 80% controlling your feelings, but if you see something heartbreaking or sad, you're going to get upset. You can't control that. If you see something that makes you happy, you're going to smile. And guess what? You can't control that. If you know that there's something that's going to make you happy, you are going to smile. You're going to laugh. But laughing is a good thing. Smiling is a good thing. Right? But once again, you are not in control of that. Your emotions are, I like to think that emotions are automatic, okay? They're automatic for some reason. Fear, what you're afraid of, right? Everybody's afraid of something, you know, in my eyes, or at least used to be. You can't control that as well until you face it, until you finally face that fear. And then once you face that fear, you'll finally get over it, right? But you can't control how you feel when you're afraid, right? Because that's like being nervous, right? A lot of us, you know, like maybe talking to a girl, I'm gonna say talking to a girl, for example, okay? A lot of people end up being nervous talking to a girl. Maybe they don't do it like that. Maybe it's their first time doing it. But some people are nervous. And when you're nervous, it's literally a biology thing. And you can't control that. You know? So you can't just, if you're nervous, you can't just stop being nervous. You have to just power through it. Okay? You have to power through it until your nerves is gone. But it's not something that you could just shut off. Like, oh, I'm nervous. Okay, wait, boop. Okay, now I'm no longer nervous. You can't just shut it off. Like if you're happy, like, oh, I'm happy. You can't just click a button or press something on your freaking body and turn it off. You have to just power through it. Your emotions is automatic. So I know it might not make sense now. Maybe I might make a part 2 and explain more in depth, but it really comes to the question, man, are we really free? You know, do we really have free will? We might have free will over our choices, but we don't have free will over how it impacts our life. And the reason why we don't is because we can't see the future. We can't see possible outcomes of every choice we make. Because if we did and we was able to alter them, then we would have free will. But unfortunately, we don't have, in my personal opinion, in my eyes, we don't have true free will over our life because we can't see the choices that we are not taking that back. We can't see how the choices we make impact our lives. And I want you to think about that. Okay. Remember what I just said. Yeah. Free will is about being able to make any choice that you want, but you can't control how it impacts your life. You cannot control that because you're not able to see how it impacts your life. You just have to, it's basically like you're choosing a choice and you just have to hope for the best. Right? Because that's like death, right? That's like death. And we all know that we're going to die one day, right? If you knew how you would die, would you change it? You would probably change it, right? If you could alter how, if you was able to see how you died and you was able to alter it, you was able to change it, you probably would, right? Because me personally, I want to die at old age in my sleep, right? I don't want to die in a painful way. You know, I don't think anybody does, right? But guess what? We're not in control of that. We can't control how we die. That's not up to us. Sure, we can, okay, I take that back. We can just jump off the bridge or just take a knife and slice ourselves, right? We can do that. But what if there was another way, right? You still, even with those options, you still can't control that. You can't control how long you live. Because if most people could, then they would probably live, a lot of people would probably live forever. But there's always a cap somewhere, you know? So if you really think about that, you generally don't have free will after all, which means that you're not really free. This world that we're enslaved, man, in my eyes. Because when you really think about it deeply, you'll realize that you don't have free will. Because you always have to follow something or somebody, right? Even your own life, you don't have free will in, okay? Because you don't know how it's going to play out. You don't know how your choices will impact your life. See, if you was able to see, like if you was able to have prescience or see into the future and see how every choice will impact your life, you then, in my personal eyes, you will actually have free will. Because you can see that, hey, I know that if I do this choice right now, I know it's going to lead here. But if I do this, it's going to lead here. And I'm not talking about just thinking, because obviously you can sit here and be like, well, yeah, I could kill somebody and hey, yeah, I know it's going to end me up in jail. But as long as I don't kill nobody, I can be free, right? Yeah, obviously in some cases, yeah. But that's like saying, hey, right? That's like somebody getting shot, right? Hey, maybe, because look, innocent people get shot or get in a crossfire all the time. If they knew that they was going to get shot, they probably wouldn't have been in that area to begin with, to where they would get shot. So if they willingly chose to still be, even after seeing it, and they still chose to be in that area, now that would mean that they have free will. That would mean that they chose that. But essentially, in my eyes, it seems like we don't have free will because we're not really in control of our choices. We're not in control of how our choices impact our life. So we're not really free. Because, like I said, when it comes to religion, you were born into your religion. And some people, they're okay with that. Some people stick to it. Some people say, no, I'm a convert, right? But when you were younger, did you have a choice? If you was born a Christian, did you have a choice to believe in something else? If you was born a Muslim, did you have a choice to believe in something else? When you were younger? No. No. And even when you get older, you decide to convert and you tell your family, they're going to think you're wrong. Right? But in reality, when it comes to religion, we really don't know what's going to happen to us when we die. And that's the truth about it. You know, we don't really know. I believe in a God. I believe in God. But the problem that a lot of people have is that they feel like they know exactly what's going to happen to them when they die. But the reality is we don't. We don't know. Right? Because if we did, if we were sure that we knew what was going to happen to us when we die, there wouldn't be 10,000 religions. There will only be one. Think about that. It will only be one singular religion because, or whatever, or answer whatever, explain to us what's going to happen to us when we die. But unfortunately, we don't know. We don't know until we die. And we have to be fully dead, not the people talking about they died and came back. No, we have to be fully dead, brain dead, everything. Meaning that there's no coming back. You know what I mean? But unfortunately, we don't know. So it always comes back to the answer, the question, do we really have free will? Are we really free? Because the life on earth, it still feels like slavery. We're all in invisible chains and we don't even realize it. Okay? Because when it comes to life, right? The only if you don't work and you don't make money, you're not going to live. You're not going to be able to eat. And you're not going to be able to live. So if you don't, now you can choose that. You can choose to that, but choose that life, but you'll be homeless and you'll be homeless and shit and be starving. But eventually you will die. Right? But when it comes to making money, you have to make money. You have to buy food. You have to have a crib. You have to have everything to survive. Right? Because there's no other choice. You can choose not to, but remember, you don't have any say-so in how it's going to impact your life. That's not up to you. You can't just, look, you could be outside and just randomly get struck by lightning. Right? You can't choose that. You didn't have choice over that. You know what I mean? So, in a grounded world like this, it really doesn't feel like we have free will when you really think about it. It feels like we're following a script that somebody made for us. You know? Because if we all had our own scripts in life, we would be able to alter how our life is and how our life could be. Or at least be able to see it. You know what I mean? Like, if I was able to see the choice I make and the exact outcome it would bring, now I would feel like I'll have free will. Everybody will have the answer. Everybody in the world would know what they actually want to do and what to do and what they need to do to lead up to it. You know? But we don't get any spoilers to our life. So we just have to live and hope for the best, right? But it just feels like we're stuck, man. We're trapped, we're enslaved, you know, in this world. And like I said, people might not understand this. People might not get it. And it's okay if you think I'm not making sense or you think I'm talking crazy. I mean, I'm just venting. You know, at the end of the day, I'm talking to myself on the camera. But 44 minutes, man, just think about that. You know? I can really go on and on about this shit, man. Like, it gets deep, right? Because I really thought about this yesterday. And what really inspired this was me watching Attack on Titan, right? And how Eren wanted free will, or freedom, my fault. His main goal was freedom, right? But he ended up becoming a slave to freedom because he didn't have another choice. He couldn't change anything. So he was forced to follow a script that he set for himself. That he had to start the realm, that he had to create this chain of events. He couldn't change it. So the freedom that he actually dreamed of was never really real. He was still a slave at the end of the day because he had no control. And you know what I mean? But, and I'll be honest with y'all, man. I feel like when you finally pass away or die is when you finally have freedom, when you're finally free, because you're free from everything. Choice, right or wrong, yes or no. None of that should matter when you're dead, because all of that matters in this world. But when you're dead and you're no longer in this world from as long as I can see, I don't know. You know, reincarnation could be a thing, you know. But you're free from everything. Your choices no longer impact you no more. You no longer have any emotion. That's why a lot of people, when they're at near death, they state that they feel bliss. And bliss isn't really an emotion. It's just like a state of being where it's nothing. You feel nothing. No emotion. No right or wrong. No yes or no. Just nothing. No choice. Nothing. You know? So you're free from all of that. You know? And I think that's where true freedom comes from. You know? Because a lot of people, before they die, unfortunately, they suffer. You know? They feel pain. A lot of people feel pain. And pain can lead to crying, upset. You know what I mean? It's a feeling. They feel. But when you start to die, that feeling goes away. You no longer feel anymore. You no longer feel. All your senses go. Feelings go. Emotions go. Your sight, your hearing, everything goes. So when all of that goes, nothing matters. Having true freedom is when nothing really actually matters. Meaning that the way you perceive life doesn't matter. The choices you make no longer matters, doesn't matter. Right or wrong, it doesn't matter. It's not about yes or no. Because it doesn't matter. It's not about right or wrong. It's not about how you feel. It simply just doesn't matter. But because the choice that you make does matter in this grounded world, you're not really free. Because, once again, it matters in this world because you don't know how it's going to impact your life. So you don't know that if you decide, hey, I'm going to do this. You don't know how it's going to impact your life. So because you have no knowledge of it, it does matter because you don't know. But if you knew what would happen 100%, it wouldn't matter to you. If you already knew, like, hey, if I made this choice, I can see that it's going to lead here. And I'm not talking about you just thinking. I'm talking about you actually being able to physically see it. See yourself, like seeing the future. Then it wouldn't really matter to you. And that's free will and freedom, in my opinion. But that is a more outer explanation, right? You know, like I said, people have two types of freedoms and free wills. You have the grounded version and you have the outer version, the real, actual, true freedom. And when you really think about it, the outer version is what I'm talking about. See, the grounded version, people look at freedom is the having the ability to be able to make any choice that you want. Having the ability to, hey, I can choose to do this, I could choose that, right? That's people's version of free will or freedom. But if you just look at it at that aspect, you're not going to realize that that's not actually freedom. Because yes, you can choose to do this. You could choose to do that. But you can't choose how it's going to impact your life. You can't choose that. You can't choose that. And still, even in this grounded world, there are places where, once again, you still can't choose. Like if you was working a job, like I just explained in my job, you can choose what job you want to work or what you want to do, but the manager still has full control over you. You can't choose to stay how long you want to stay at that job because the manager could choose that. You can't choose the job. You can't be like, hey, I'm going to just do this. I don't care what my manager says. I'm going to do this job. You also can't choose how much money you want to get paid. You know what I mean? Because whatever you get paid hourly is what you're going to get paid. You can't edit it, or you can't choose, hey, instead of me making 14 hours, $14 an hour, I'm going to make it to where I can make $30 an hour. You can't choose that. Okay? So in an outer version, we don't truly have freedom or free will, and we are still slaves. We are still enslaved, man. And we're going to be like that until we die. When we die, that's when we experience true freedom. Free from choice, free from right or wrong, free from pain, free from everything, free from all of it. Just think about that. Rewatch this video and think about it before you comment and be like, oh, you're just saying some nonsense. Rewatch this video. I know this video is probably be an hour long, but I really thought about that, especially after watching Attack on Titan, right? And a lot of us are still slaves to something. You know, it's something that dude Levi said. Everybody is a slave to something, and that's true. Majority of men are a slave to their lust, to their bad vices. Because think about it. Why is it so hard for you to stop masturbating when you know you don't want to? Like, you know, you're telling yourself in your head, I don't want to do this. But yet, it seems like you don't have control over it. Why is it so hard to stop smoking or to stop drinking? Even when you tell yourself, hey, I don't want to do that. But it seems like you don't have control. Do you really have full control? Because if that was the case, why is it so hard for people? Sure, some people can be able to put it down, but not everybody can. When it comes to smoking and drinking, that's something that's outer, okay? Smoking, doing drugs, that's something that's outer, right? Like it affects your brain, but it's not something rooted into your brain. It just alters your brain. So it's kind of easier to stop that. But when it comes to horniness or your lust, you can't stop that. That's always going to be there until your hormones, your testosterone start to sink. And you can't stop that. You can't stop yourself from getting horny. You don't even have true free will over your body. So the real question comes, are we really free? Are we really free in this world? Because if you're asking me, I don't think we are. I think we're still living in a script that somebody made for us. And we don't even know how it's going to end. We don't know. We don't know how it's going to end. We don't know how we don't have control over anything. Even when we think we do, we really don't. Unless we was able to alter our life, like we could see the future and we can alter it and change certain events, we don't have true free will over our life, man. We don't. Not us anyway. Our creator does. God does. God has true freedom and free will. God is not a grounded being. God is above this grounded world. God can choose to alter events, to do this, do that, experience or not experience. But we as human beings can't. We're slaves to this grounded world. We're trapped. We're stuck to this grounded world where we have to follow the rules of this world. Okay? Meaning that you have to breathe oxygen. You have to eat to survive. You have to drink water to survive. You have to make money to survive. You have to be in, well, you don't have to be in a crib, but you have to be in some type of shelter to raise your chance of surviving, right? We have to still follow the rules in this world. Right or wrong actually exists. But when you die, you don't have to follow. What rules to follow? What rules? Right? Because there is no rules, you know? Because you're no longer a part of this world. Now this shit's fucking deep, man. And you know, I made this video, but people are gonna still think I'm a fucking idiot. I know, it's crazy. But when you really think about it, man, maybe you'll understand. Maybe I am just saying some bullshit, but I thought about it. And it makes more sense to me. And honestly, the more I think about it, it'll start to make more sense. But yeah, man, I'm gonna end it off right here with this one question. Are we really free? Okay. Don't look at it in a grounded sense. Look at it in overall. Because if everybody in this world has to still follow the same rules. The same rules apply to everybody in this world. Everybody has to eat. Everybody has to drink. Everybody has to drink some type of water. Everybody has to make money and pay the government and pay taxes. Right? Everybody has to do these things to survive. Men have to procreate, or at least they don't have to, but their bodies are always going to say that. Their bodies have to be horny. Because I always thought about it. I'm thinking like, man, why can't I just stop myself from getting horny? Why? You know, but it's a part of my body. I can't stop that. And if I did somehow, that's going to fuck up the rest of my body. Like, is there a way I can stop myself from being horny ever, but still be healthy and have high testosterone? It's impossible. Because if that was some way possible for us men to do, men wouldn't be like how they are. But yeah, anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, man. This is almost an hour-long video. But it just goes to show how much I've been thinking about. But yeah, like, comment, subscribe, man. And yeah, see y'all in the next one. Peace.